What is it that officers do? Do they blow aircon and do paperwork while their troopers are out at training? Do they wake up whatever time they want? I remember back in secondary school, I was watching Our Boys to Men, and I remember army as a place where one gets scolded, forged brotherhood, and more. Honestly, back then, I did not take national service seriously at all. All I was thinking to myself is, NS is in a couple of years' time, let me focus on what is important now, which are my studies. Little did I know that in a couple of years' time, here I am, enlisting in national service, going through some of the toughest training my body and mind has ever endured, and finally daunting on the rank of an officer. So in today's video, I'll be bringing you through exactly a day in the life of an officer. The first thing I do in the morning at 5 to 6 AM is to do 100 push-ups, 11km run, 120 pull-ups, and 130 sit-ups. No, it is to actually wake up around 5 to 6 AM to make my bed. By making my bed, I start my day right, by accomplishing something small, which gives me a little sense of purpose to want to try to do bigger things in my life. Because what makes you think you can do the bigger things in your life if you can't even do the small things in your life, right? Every single morning at around 6:45 to 7 o'clock, all the troopers from my company would arrange themselves in platoon level. Their sergeants will account for strength, ensure that they've taken their temperature and that they have water paraded, before the strength is reported to the platoon sergeant, who will then report the strength to me. Usually every single morning, we'll have a morning PT conduct, a physical training conduct. That starts usually from around 7 to 8:30, and the morning PT conducts include running conducts like 4km runs, time interval, distance interval. You have strength and power, which is like gymming, IPPT, which is a test to test your physical fitness. You have sports and games, which includes frisbee, football, captain ball. As a commander yourself, you're expected to plan, to conduct, to participate, to motivate your men during the PT conduct itself. Afterwards, the PT conduct, it's around 9 to 12 o'clock. You have to start to prepare the paperwork or administrative work for major conduct that is also tasked to you. So not just PT conducts. These major conducts include live firing, VOC, IPPT, outfield, section, platoon battle course, and you have to get ready of all the details of those that are going. For example, their own particulars. You have to arrange bookings, make phone calls, manage resources, delegate roles. It can get very overwhelming because of all these informations and all these preparations that have to be done, but it is necessary and it falls under your responsibility. And the most important thing about managing major or small conducts is you have to understand the flow of the conduct. Because if you understand the flow of the conduct, you know what are the roles and responsibilities of each of your appointment holders. You're able to better manage and control the entire conduct itself. So that is honestly the role of an officer when it comes to planning, conducting. You need to be able to read, understand past documents, past archives, lesson plan. You need to read it very thoroughly. You need to go and ask people who have conducted this before. So all these things are forced preparation that needs to be done. So as I was editing my videos, I realized that a lot of things that was mentioned about an officer seems to be like conducting, planning and all, but actually it is a lot more than just that. So there are two things that officers need to maximize, and number one is to maximize the safety of training, to make sure that safety processes, safety measures are being put in place to eliminate the chances of anyone getting injured. And number two is to maximize the effectiveness of training so that we can train competent, strong and effective soldiers. When it comes to lunch, it's around 12 to 12:30 to 12:45. You have two options to choose from. You have cookhouse food or you have canteen food. After a year of eating cookhouse food, because 3 months in BMT, 9 months in OCS, cookhouse foods are at times pretty good. They serve bak kut teh, they have western food, but sometimes it can get a little bit repetitive. But in general, the food is edible and very nutritious. Canteen food, on the other hand, are food that you have to pay to eat. Okay, they are a little bit more delicious because they're fried food. They are nasi lemak, fries, western food. And they have drinks like cold drinks like Milo, teh. It can get very tempting, but to me, as often as possible, I try my best to go to cookhouse food because the food at cookhouse, they are free and they help me to save money. So I often opt to go for cookhouse. Unless I have a lot of things going on that I don't have enough time to go cookhouse, I'll usually go to canteen and buy my food. Afterwards, in the afternoon, right, from around 12:45 to 1700, 5 o'clock, events can get very happening. How can a commander teach his men if he himself is not competent? So number one, you have commanders training sometimes. Number two, you have war gaming, or you have preparations, or you have lessons for them. Because for them to go outfield, for them to be ready, they have to be prepared, they have to be trained before they can go outfield to smoothly execute all their drills. And last but not least, you can have probably more PT sessions, right? More sports and games, more running that is done in the morning and even in the afternoon.
One of the job of an officer is that we are wrecking this out of camp run at Jurong Lake Garden, as you can see over here. So we're currently wrecking the area to see whether the path that we're taking, the route that we're taking, if there's any AED location, you know, or really coming out the running route, to see where's the ideal location for this out of camp run. So that's also part and parcel of an officer.
So after all this is done in the afternoon, you have dinner, so around 5:30 to 7 o'clock. And to close the day, alright, you have last parade. Same thing as first parade, but the only difference between first parade and last parade is that you have to read out the routine orders. A routine orders is basically a list of things that the troopers will have to do tomorrow. After last parade is done, what thing that usually happens and takes on after that is SRT, which stands for self-regulated training, which ranges from around 8 to 9:30, and it happens every other night. We strongly encourage, right, our troopers to participate in SRT, and it helps to reach their IPPT goals. Platoon commander yourself, if you are really out there for your platoon, you can choose to participate with them SRT. You can train with them SRT, which I believe is a good thing, but sometimes if paperwork gets too much, then you wouldn't have time for SRT. And what will you do after last parade? You'll be in the office again. So after an entire day of work, your real work starts, right, in the office at night. You work through the night to complete as much paperwork as possible for your major conducts. After completion, you will then have to get it vetted by your OC, which is your boss, who will provide you with some feedback and changes. To me, yes, okay, it can get very tiring. After a whole day of physical training together with your men, SRT, going for afternoon conducts training, commander training, and coming back in the office to continue with more paperwork, it can get physically exhausting. So it's very important for a commander yourself to really manage your work, to be more efficient, to delegate your roles properly so that you do not consume yourself with so much work. If you delegate your work properly, your work is evenly spread out, you'll be able to maximize your time more efficiently. You know, seek guidance from your upper studies who have a better experience, who can guide you. Go and consult your OC on how things should be done. It can get very tiring, this entire process, but all these skills that I've acquired and really apply them out in the real working world in the future, which I believe is so valuable. To me, I feel that at the end of the day, I want to be like a sponge, to really absorb everything, to learn everything as much as possible, to train myself to be work ready, to train myself to be emotionally mature about things. I think that is, to me, the biggest takeaway that I want to have, and not so much about thinking about the overwhelming workload. Because at the end of the day, I want to walk out of NS knowing that I've really learned the most and I've really made use of my time wisely. So if you are efficient, if you are good, if you finish your paperwork early, more time for yourself, right? You can go and lepak, go and chill, go and use your phone, right? There's no lights out for you as a commander. But for me, most of the time after I finish my paperwork, I will choose to go to the gym. Alright, I will gym around 10 or 11 o'clock all the way around to 12 plus before heading back to bed. Sometimes if things get a bit too much, too overwhelming, you might skip your dinner. You might not have time to eat, so you cook noodles. So it's important as an officer for you yourself to bring cup noodles, to bring snacks in for you to eat and consume, because you wouldn't want to sleep being hungry lah. For major conduct, for example, live firing, section live firing. For major conducts, right, you have to wake up very early. Everything that is supposed to be done is done. Everything is set up properly. We're ready to move off at the specific time when the bus comes, right? Make sure that all the other commanders are awake and doing their job too, because sometimes specific appointments have to wake up even earlier than the conducting officer himself. So before the conduct starts, you're probably the busiest person because you have to ensure that the paperwork and all the preparations are completed. However, one thing I realized is that the moment these major conducts start, your role as a conducting officer is to ensure and control the flow of the conduct. It's kind of similar to a conductor in an orchestra, making sure that everything and everyone is doing exactly what he says, right? You also have to find ways to make things more efficient, and it's really like controlling and moving your chess pieces to see that all these forced preparations, all these things that I've done and built up to today's conduct, and to see it just move so smoothly is what makes me feel a sense of accomplishment. The sense of accomplishment, knowing that my hard work has finally paid off, encourages me, right, to really work hard for subsequent work and conducts, and really keeps me craving a little bit for more. You are going to take on a role to lead your men or lead others, okay, one way or another. I feel like it is a very privileged opportunity for you to really grow yourself, to really nurture those people under you, to really try to make a difference in the lives of those under you. Being an officer is more than just a job. It is about imparting those under me with life lessons, values, so they leave army becoming a better person. It is about pushing them beyond what is expected of themselves, so they become a more resilient person. It is about training our men to become physically strong and competent soldiers, so that we can deter anyone that threatens our sovereignty. But more importantly to me, it is for them to have a memorable time, so they can look back at army knowing it was time well spent.